Hi, so for today's demonstration I'm going to be showing you how to prepare and make chocolate macarons. There are quite a few stages to this recipe, so I'll give you some hints and tips as we go along. I'm just going to move the camera down just to show the first stage. So I have my ingredients weighed out already. I'm doing 50 grams of ground almonds. I've got 50 grams of icing sugar and 10 grams of cocoa powder for the first stage. So for the first stage we're going to sieve all of the items together, being the icing sugar, cocoa powder and ground almonds. So we'll just give that a little bit of a mix all together, and then we are going to sieve those items. So just gently pushing through with a spoon. We have to do this process twice because this then makes the macaron mixture nice and fine and a lot smoother. You just have to be a little bit patient. It goes through quite easy to start with, then just a little helping hand, rubbing the spoon against the sieve. So as you can see, what we have in the bowl is sort of a finer mixture, and then we'll just continue to just push the last through a few bits of the ground almonds and the cocoa. The icing sugar's gone through quite quickly, so if you just use the back of your spoon just to help push it through. And then towards the end you may have a few bits that we can't get through. We'll discard those. It shouldn't be too many because you don't want that to alter the recipe. So as you can see, we've got a few bits left in there that I'm now going to discard. Larger pieces of the ground almonds. I'm just going to get rid of those. And what we're going to do now, we're going to do the same process again. So just pop it into another bowl. And then sieve it through once more, just to make sure that you've got a fine mixture going in to create your chocolate macarons. There are a few processes for making macarons. If you want to try and get a nice macaron, just taking time to do these little steps will go towards that lovely macaron texture. Okay, so we're towards the end, almost finished that process now. It's a little easier the second time round because it's a bit finer, but it could take about 10 minutes just to do this little process of sieving the ingredients twice. So that's ready for the next stage. So just pop that to one side. Then we're going to start with our egg whites. So with your egg whites, we use what's called aged egg whites. And this is where we crack the egg whites and separate them the night before, so giving it about 24 hours rest. And then we'll put them in the fridge. This allows then the proteins to relax and aid you to give it a better whip, so it can foam a lot easier. So it is a good idea to do that, when you're cracking your eggs, another tip for when you're cracking your eggs and separating your eggs from your whites, crack an egg into, make sure that your bowl is thoroughly clean, and preferably a glass or metal bowl, because plastic bowls harbour oils and fats, although you can't see them, but they do harbour them. So it is better for any kind of whisking eggs, not just for macarons, whisking egg whites, sorry, for macarons. So once you crack an egg, always crack one egg into a container at a time and then add. So crack it into a separate container, put it into your container you're going to use, and then crack another egg into a separate container and add one egg to the other egg, as opposed to cracking 3 eggs into the same bowl. Because if you contaminate your bowl of 3 eggs with some egg yolk, and it only has to be a speck, your eggs won't whip to a nice hold, basically. So it's always a good idea to crack your eggs separate. Okay, so now we've got that stage. I've got this bowl. I'm now going to transfer it into a larger glass bowl, which I have cleaned. And the way I clean that is, if you boil some water in the kettle, just pop a little bit in, dry your bowl out using a kitchen towel, but always make sure that your bowl then is dry, because you don't want any specks of water in that bowl either, because that can hinder your egg whites, and potentially you won't get stiff peaks, which is what we're trying to make. So using your electric whisk, I'm going to pop those into there. I then have my 50 grams of caster sugar, and the first stage what we're going to do is we're just going to whip the egg whites until they're a little bit foamy. Once they're starting to get a little bit foamy, we'll start adding the caster sugar, sort of a tablespoon at a time. Give it a couple of seconds in between, 20 seconds or so in between each mix, add some more eggs, etc., until we've reached the correct stage. Now the correct stage needs to be basically stiff peaks. So the egg whites, they create a thick and fluffy meringue, and obviously that needs to hold as you lift the mixer whisks up in the air, which I'll show you. So each stage you just need to be checking as you go along, because what you don't want is, you don't want to go too far, break the eggs down, and then they're not going to be able to use because they're too soft. So they go to a point, and then if you over whip, they go the other way. All right, so we'll keep stopping each stage we go through. So I'm going to start whipping. So as you can see, it started to foam. This is where I'm going to start adding 1 tablespoon of caster sugar at a time. Now you can see underneath my bowl I've got a little non-stick mat. That helps your bowl not spinning around and moving along the surface. If you haven't got one of these, you could use a damp tea towel or a damp kitchen cloth, or some damp kitchen towel. It's a good tip. It just means that the bowl's not going to be moving around, so it makes it a lot easier. So I'm adding roughly a tablespoon at a time, giving it a mix for 20 seconds or so before we add the next part. As you can see, it's starting to get a little bit thicker. Last bit of sugar. So what we're going to do now, last bit of sugar, as you can see at this point, the peaks aren't peaking, so they're not. Just move my camera up a little bit. So so they're not stiff enough just yet because they're falling over. So we'll continue. If you just keep stopping every now and again just to check, they're starting to get stiffer, but they're still not stiff enough. Do it again. So as you can see, they're a little bit stiffer now. I'm just going to give it one more little whip and then I think we're about there. So take the biscuits out. They've formed stiff peaks, not flopping over as you can see. So we're now going to take that as it's completed. So just take the excess off. Okay, so what I've done now is just scraped off the excess meringue. And now our next stage is to add our dry ingredients to our peaked meringue. And again, this is another stage where you've got to watch for what we're looking for. So what we're looking for is add all the dry in, and then we're folding over and sort of cutting down the middle like a J. It will feel, you might find it a bit easier to remove your sticky mat so you can move your bowl around. It might feel a little bit stiff and dry because of all your dry ingredients, but it will blend in. Just give it a little bit of time, and every now and again scrape it around your bowl so you get all of that mixture in. Cut down the centre, because what we're looking for is a mixture that we can do a figure of 8 with, and all the meringue is incorporated. So once we don't sort of see any more flecks, so down the centre and fold it over in itself like so. Scrape on the side, bring any ingredients that hasn't mixed. Same for the side of the bowl. Fold it over. It's starting to incorporate now, so it's looking a little bit more chocolatey than meringue. And then at this stage I'll show you. So at the minute we've just got what we call a sort of a drop-in consistency. What we're looking for is it for to drop off of your spatula, and it's best to use a rubber spatula, it's a lot easier, is to be able to drop your mixture and do a figure of 8. Let me just alter the camera just so you can see it a little bit easier. We aren't quite there yet, but you need to be gentle at this point because it could just go over. So if you continue and do too much and knock too much air out, it'll get too runny and then we've gone too far. So although meringues, you're trying to keep that air in, yes, we are trying to do that, but we're also, what we don't want, if the mixture's too airy, your macarons will be hollow in the middle. So we want, it's a fine line, we want a bit in between. So this is almost there now. So if I pick that up now, and you can see it's still a bit drop in consistency, it is moving a little bit more, so you still need to just move it around a little bit, and this just gently knocks out some of the air, which is what you want to do. Just pick some up. It's still dropping, but not quite figure of 8. And it's best just to check every few turns because you don't want to go past that point. You just want to be able to see if you drop off and be able to see a figure of 8 in your mixture, which at the minute it's still a little bit stiff. It's getting there, look, as you can see. As you can see, the process, there's quite a few processes to this recipe. It's probably why they're quite so expensive to buy. Once you've done this, hopefully you won't be able to buy a macaron again. So as you can see, scrape the sides so we've incorporated everything. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is do another test. And I'm going to go with that now. So we've got our figure of 8. A couple more turns. There we go. So we've got the figure of 8. I'm going to stop at that point now. And then the next process is we're going to pipe it onto our template, either using a really good non-stick grease-proof paper or the silicone templates that you can buy easily off Amazon. So at this stage, I'm going to transfer it into a piping bag. So use a piping bag. You can have a tip in the end if you want to, a plain tip. You don't have to, I'm not going to. And I'm just using a disposable piping bag. Another tip, just pop your piping bag onto a glass. You can hold it in your hand, like so, and then put the mixture in. If you do it like this, you can then use the bowl. If you don't want to add all the mixture on, depending on the size of your piping bag, you might not be able to get all your mixture in. And then using your spatula, scrape the mixture in. And then pull your piping bag up, like so. And then just gently push it down. And then you will have a little bit of an air bubble. Don't cut it until you're ready. So we'll just clear away some of these pots so I can get my template. I've got the silicone template. This was a pack of 3 from Amazon. I have a link to that. So we've got a large one slightly smaller. It gets about 9 filled macarons on, and then a smaller sheet which is just plain. And then the other one also has like cake circles as a template also. Brilliant. I was really impressed with these templates. So the templates here are to help you and guide you so you get more of a uniform macaron. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pipe the macarons. We're just going to use one method. We don't have to do any circles, just in one place. And as you can see, I've got 2 rings, so I'm just going to fill it to the inner ring, and then it may disperse over that as I show you the next method. So at this point, I'm just going to take off roughly maybe about, so it's about a centimetre hole on my piping bag. And then I find it easier to pop your piping bag around your thumb, like so, and then twizzle your piping bag around, and then you can get a better, tighter fit, ready to pipe. So this hand then is only just small bit of pressure, and this hand you're just using as a guide, or vice versa. Okay, so we're going to start, I'll start in the centre to make it easy for you. We're just going to pipe, just squeeze and let go. Squeeze in the centre gently, just to fill out to your inner circle, and then you should then hopefully get more uniform macarons. So try not to squeeze too much. If you've got too much pressure on there, you're going to end up with a lot bigger. And then again, you're not putting your piping bag, don't put your piping bag direct onto the sheet like so. Hold it probably about 1/2 centimetre up, and then just gently press on the top of your piping bag and it'll come out naturally. Just use the other hand for guidance. And if you just turn the top of the piping bag excuse me, each time, it just tightens that bag up a little bit more. Don't worry about the peaks on it just now, because on the next step I'll be able to show you what you're going to do after that. So you should get roughly about 10 to 12 filled macarons from this mixture. Obviously if you want to make more, then just double your recipe, and therefore you're going to end up with more macarons. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Now the next stage, what we have to do is try and get some of that air out again. So we're gently holding it equally, just going to drop the tray evenly on the side like so. And we're going to do that about 5 times. You don't have to hold it too high. Just do it again. And then what this does is it releases some air bubbles. So once you see those air bubbles, using a cocktail stick, you can then ease them out by just wiggling your cocktail stick over the top of it. We will drop them again just to see if there's any more release. You can see that there's one being released here. Again, just use your cocktail stick just to ease them out. If you ease them out now, before they get cooked, then you should have sort of nice, smooth, no air bubbles on the top of your meringues. Again, it takes a little bit of time, and then once this process is done, you then have to leave them to form a skin. Again, to help stop that cracking of your meringues, or your macarons I should say. So just check for any more air bubbles. I'm gonna just drop them again on the side, see if we can get any more released. So again, evenly and gently. So if you wanted to do bigger macarons, obviously you can use the bigger template. You can see here, I don't know if you can see that one, if I lift it up you might be able to see there's 2 air bubbles that's just formed on this one here. So just here, you can see there's 2 air bubbles that have just popped. So I'm just going to use my cocktail stick just to fill them in, and there's one just here, and I can see one developing. Just there. And I think that will be about it. There's one, just a big one just there. So as I've popped that, I've just filled it in. One just here. It's worth spending that little bit of extra time where you see an air bubble. So we're then going to leave these for 30 to 60 minutes just to form like a skin over the top, so that when you touch them you shouldn't be able to see the mixture, should touch your fingers. So we'll leave them for 30 minutes to get a skin, and then we're going to pop them into the oven. Okay, so I'm going to now leave these for 30 minutes, and then we're going to pop them in the oven, which is a preheated oven at 150 degrees fan, 170 electric without fan, and about gas Mark 3 for gas. Okay, then we'll come back and see, I can show you then what they look like after 30 minutes, or if I need to do it a little bit longer.